I am curious. You've interviewed so many people that are the A-listers out there in the world. So I got the Dave Ramsey. I'm curious, Ed Mylett. What did you take away from Ed Mylett?
Well, you know what's interesting with all of them is most of my takeaways happen after or before the show.
I could see that. Yeah.
Because in most cases, we end up developing a relationship on the show, which is why I love podcasting. I mean, dude, if we get to chill and talk for an hour and a half, odds are, hopefully, we become friends afterwards. And if not, then either we didn't vibe or something bad happened. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I mean, the hope is that we develop some kind of relationship. And so that ends up leading to next steps afterwards. So like even with Ed, this is why I bring it up. I kind of already told you what happened. You know, first I went to his house in Laguna, made a good impression on the podcast. He said, I love what you're doing, bro. This is awesome. Here's my number. Let me know what happened. Like, if you need me, whatever, I'm excited for the event. He then gets to the event, sees the professionalism, sees the experience, sees how well run it was, has a great time. And, you know, we hang out at dinner. We do all that stuff. And then afterwards, he's just like, dude, like, whatever you need, man, I got you. And then guess what? I said, well, I do need something. I got this other event. Yeah. But I ain't got no budget over there. This is for a nonprofit.
Right.
You know, I know what you're worth. I paid it.
Right.
But like, I'm going to lose money on this event throwing it for our Kingdom Summit. But I think it'd be great. Dude, our tickets were only $27 back then. It's like, I don't think you can make 100.
Yeah, that's a lot of tickets.
There's not like,
there's not math.
There's not a math to get there.
Yeah. No.
So, he's like, no, I'll do it for free. Right. So kind of like, I've learned a lot from Ed over the years. And what I would say is, even for him, I think he just really cares about people.
Yeah, I get that.
In all of our conversations behind the scenes, like randomly, I'll get a text from him. He'll be like, dude, just want you to know I'm really proud of you. Like, love what you're doing here. I saw this clip. Like, he's watching.
Nice.
And I'll actually even give another behind the scenes that no one knows. I didn't even know this. So, my assistant, his name was Jonathan. He died last year.
Yep, I remember.
And, you know, Ed knew who he was because Jonathan was communicating with Ed on, you know, all these different things we did. And Jonathan's son, Austin, works for me. He's now 18. He's worked for me since he was 15. And, you know, obviously it was a tough time for him and for everybody in the company and all that. And Ed, I did not know this, had been communicating with Jonathan while he was sick, DMing him back and forth, checking in on him. Like, this is just...
It's just who Ed is.
Yeah. And by the way, this is like not some famous guy, or he's my assistant.
Right.
Right. And he's communicating with Jonathan. And after Jonathan passed, he kept up that communication with Austin.
Wow.
And nobody would know that. And I didn't even know that till Austin told me one day.
Ed Mylett's a good dude.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
So that's something like that you would never hear or know.
That just tells you who he is, his core. He doesn't have to do that. Nobody asked him to do that.
Nothing.
Just what's on his heart.
Yeah.
So,
speaking at that event.
Shout out to Ed. For
yeah.
That. You've interviewed everyone. The other one I'd talk about is Andy Elliott.
Andy Elliott. Boy, Andy.
Yeah, he's a handful sometimes. He's passionate.
He's a controversial one.
Yeah, he's controversial. But again, passion is, energy's good.
Yeah.
And you always know where he stands. At least that's my feeling.
Yeah.
What do you take from him?
So a lot of things with Andy, and just in general, Andy's a good example of a lot of, I don't even want to say they're difficult decisions because they're not, but a lot of people, when I have a controversial person on, they'll be like, dude, how are you going to have this guy on? He did X, Y, Z. Same thing happens with literally lots of people I had on.
Yeah.
Especially from Christians. And that's a whole just different topic. But yeah, with Andy, it's cool because him and I have known each other way before he ever got famous.
Oh, really?
So I had Bradley speaking at one of my events. This was maybe 3 years ago. And, Brad is Brad, and he's been around a long time. And Brad goes, hey, I want you to meet one of my friends. This guy's going to be the next big thing.
Wow, okay.
And I go, what's his name? He goes, his name's Andy Elliott. I go, cool. Like, bring him to the event. So he brings him to the event, not to speak, or no one knows who he is.
Right.
Andy just wanted to meet and see the event and everything else. So I meet Andy, same guy, Jack guy, wearing his short shorts,
six pack.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, okay, so this is Andy, cool. And I had asked Brad that before too. I go, who's like the next guy that you've seen that nobody knows about? He goes, Andy Elliott, by far. Nobody's like, I'm just telling you, he's
coming.
He's coming. At the time, he had maybe 20,000 Instagram followers, 20,000 YouTube subscribers. So it's not like he was nobody, but like not 2 million. Right. So we meet the first time there about 3 years ago. Then I was like, dude, come on the podcast. So he comes back to Vegas and he brings his whole team. This is the first time I experienced their team.
Okay.
Because they're crazy. And dude, these guys roll in like 8 people deep, the same exact thing he does today, but now I'll roll like 100 deep.
Wow, okay.
But dude, he brings 8 people in my office. These guys are like getting people fired up, yelling at the sales team, like going hard on them, okay? And then, Andy and I do our first podcast together, and it's a really good show. And we went to dinner with him and the whole team, and we talked about all these different things, and we talked about things he was working on at the time, what I was working on, and the whole thing. All super genuine. And, obviously since then, the last couple of years, he's blown up. He's spoken at WealthCon multiple times. He's been on the podcast since then. I went to his office because I told him, I go, dude, I got to see your sales team firsthand. Like, I want to see what they do on a daily basis because obviously I'm always looking for ways to get better.
Sure.
I'm like, let's see. I want to know how real this is. He's like, pick a time, pick a day. So we go out, fly in that morning. I spent about 5 hours there just observing their team, talking to everybody. Dude, it's the way they say it is. Like, dude, they're crazy. 24/7.
I like it.
They don't turn it off. I'm like, this is nuts. There's so much going on here, and the culture is so strong that it's insane. So what I would say about Andy is 2 things. One is I think that he's very misunderstood. That's number one. I think that, and part of it I would say was his own fault. Early on, I think he was very focused on just doing whatever it took to get views, very controversial things, yelling at people to rip off their shirts and, all this stuff. And it worked, so I can't even say it was wrong. But now I think
there's a hangover.
Way past all that, and he's talked about it. Now he's more concerned about just giving value and showing other sides of him that aren't just bullying people. He's talking way more about his faith.
Yep.
He's growing in his faith. He's talking more about his family. He's talking more about things that are really trying to help people, not tear people down and just be viral.
Right.
So I think that number one, people might still have kind of this old perception of him, but he's not. He isn't. He's never been that. I think it's just even Grant would tell you the same thing. Like, when I hang out with Grant behind the scenes, he is not the way you see him on social media.
Sure.
Nor is Andy.
He's got to raise above the noise.
Yeah, they're both way different behind the scenes. For good or for bad.
Right.
I mean, it really just depends how you want to take it. I like to think I'm the same, both on camera and off camera.
Yeah.
Like,
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I don't really.
Same guy.
Yeah, like, I don't hype it up for camera, try to, like,
no,
be all crazy for views. Like, I'm just this way all the time. But maybe I should.
Like, I think you're doing okay. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't look, to get more views, they do what they do. And right.
They do what they do. Yeah.
So I would say that. But I would say number 2, the dude is just super genuine too. So in the same way that you think Ed Mylett was, all those stories I just told, also Andy is the exact same way.
Oh, wow.
So
I don't think people would get that.
No, nobody would ever know that. So anytime I've ever asked Andy for anything, he's just like, name it. Time and date, I'll be there. You want me to be at WealthCon? I'll be there. You want my team to train you? I'll send them there. You want to come to the office? Come. Whatever you need help with, bro, I'm there.
Nice.
And then same thing too. Dude, I will just get random texts from him all the time. Never asking for anything.
That's amazing.
Just talking about, cool things that he's got going on. Let's see. Like, yeah, dude, he's telling me about a Bible verse he was reading. He's telling me about, this was back in November. He's sending a picture. Dude, this was over 2 years the first time we met. Look at this, man. He's just sending me old pics.
That's nice.
So, yeah, I think he really cares. And by the way, you just caught like a hot streak of guys that I really like. So, but there are some guys that's not like that.
Yeah?
Yeah, that I've interviewed, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think we're going to be very good friends.
Get the ick factor.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, that was fine.
Yeah, all right. Well, we don't ask for any names.
No, so I'm glad you asked good ones because, you know, if you're like, hey, what if it's this guy? I'd be like, yeah, he was cool.
Yeah, well.
All right, next guy.
Well, I got a whole bunch of people.
All right, well, whatever. Maybe I'll do it. All right.
There you go.
Who else you got?
One of the ones I want to ask you about, because, again, something I have taken on because of, I think it's Jess Lee Itzler does this, the whole big, you know, like do something hard every year. So last year I ran the Vegas Marathon. First time I ran a marathon.
Dude, that's hard.
Yeah, did it, done, never doing it again.
How long did it take?
5 hours.
Dude, that seems fast.
Yeah, anyway, it's
done
and dusted.
How long did you run?
Like
what percentage were you actually running versus walking?
The first 18 miles.
You ran the first 18 miles?
Yeah, I did first 13 in 2 hours and 2 minutes.
What is that pace?
It's like 8 and change.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so mile 18.
Dude, you're a runner.
Well, yeah, I did train.
Yeah.
Right, so the first 18 was fine. 18 to 21 was painful.
Uh-huh.
And 21 through 26, I thought I was walking on glass.
Did you walk?
I literally walked almost, except for like the last quarter mile when like everybody's looking at you. But yeah, the last 4 miles were painful.
Wow.
Painful steps.
How long did it take to recover? Like, what was up with your feet after?
The feet were not good for a week. I was 10-man for 3 days. I mean, everything hurt. from literally from the ears down, everything hurt.
Wow.
Just, it's crazy. Anyways, never doing that again. But my 2025 challenge is I'm going to try to get to 9.9% body fat as a 53-year-old.
That's hard.
And I started January 1st at 34%. I'm down 15 pounds already.
Wow.
But where I'm going to this, I know you did a lot of research. You had Gary Brecka on. I think Gary Brecka looked at your blood work. So any thoughts on how does, older guys get healthy? Any thoughts on all of that?
I'm not a doctor, so
neither am I.
Take what I say with a grain of salt.
Sample of one.
Okay, so I'm going to preface that. But I would say, number one, obviously your diet and your work. Well, okay, so the first thing that's most important is your diet.
Yep.
Always will be your diet. Okay. Second thing, your workouts matter. The thing that freaking I like are peptides and testosterone.
Okay.
At 53 for sure.
Yeah.
Now at 35,
you
don't
started
need all
creams, right? And then did you do shots or no?
Yeah, so I do shots now.
Okay.
So I mean, look, I'm not here to go tell everyone to go do TRT and all this stuff. I'm 35 now, and for me, I just decided it was time.
Okay,
And I've been with a lot of doctors and different things, and then I've tried lots of different peptides over, the last year. And actually, you know what's interesting? I would say, when did I start the journey? July of 2023, I started the journey of those different things.
Right.
And I did it for about 9 months, and I got more jacked than I've ever been. I put on like 15 pounds, stronger than ever. It was crazy.
You were always an athlete.
Yeah.
You're just skinny.
Yeah. So then I started to put on some mass. And after that, I actually ended up kind of like getting off of everything for about a year. And part of the reason why is because TRT, as some would say, is like a birth control.
Right. Lowers. Yeah.
Yep. And so we decided we want to have another kid.
Oh. Okay.
And so I have to like start the process of getting off. So I basically got off everything. And, that sucks. It sucks getting off everything when you've been on it.
Okay.
Because it affects everything
Mood
else.
swing and
just energy levels more than anything. I wouldn't say my mood's different.
Okay.
Just energy, strength, all that stuff.
Sure.
Whatever, right? So long story short, I haven't been on anything crazy for like the last, I don't know, 6 to probably 6+ months.
But there's a bigger reason.
Yeah. And
I'm not looking to have kids. I'm 53. I'm good.
Yeah, dude, you can go on all the sauce you want. But once we're confirmed pregnant, I'll be back on all the sauce.
Okay. Because it was worthwhile getting your blood test, all that stuff. You notice a big
my
change.
gosh, dude, it's so different.
All right.
So different. So if you want to get there, man, a lot of people will be like, "Oh, don't take." It's like, here's how I look at it. You're gonna be on stuff no matter what. So for example, have to drink water and eat food every day,
Me too.
right? I've been on multivitamins and all these other supplements,
Yeah.
Every day. I eat eggs every day. I eat 200 grams of protein every day. I've been doing that my whole life, essentially, since being an athlete and as an adult. It's like I do other stuff that I'm committed to for life. I work out weekly for life. So to me, logically, it didn't make much sense that I was treating this other stuff any different.
Yeah, makes total sense. You actually brought up Brad Lee earlier. That's a name I had on the list. He's been doing this a long time.
My knucklehead friend.
Yeah. Curious, what'd you take from Brad Lee?
Dude, Brad is so funny. I don't think he's that misunderstood. He is the jokester that he is.
Yeah.
One is, okay, let me add this. All three guys you mentioned, Brad, Andy, Ed, Dave Ramsey. I can't remember who else you might mention.
Grant.
Okay, so Grant would not fall into this. But all four of those guys are Christians. And Dave's been a Christian a really long time. Ed is getting more and more on fire by his faith. And then I would call Andy and Brad new. And it's really cool to see all of their progression. Because as somebody who, I've been a Christian my whole life, and I think I've gotten a lot more on fire in the last couple of years. But it's been cool. Like, the reason I just bring all this whole stuff up is the first time I ever met Brad and we did a show, we had this debate about Jesus. Like, it went viral. And Brad was basically like, that's not his name. That's not his name. This is the thing. His name is Yeshua. And I'm like, Brad, this is just what it means in, Hebrew. Like, it's still the same. And like, he was really hung up on that for a really long time. And he still might be hung up on a little bit. But long story short, it's funny because Brad had a life-changing event where his daughter almost died.
Oh.
Like, recently. She almost drowned.
Wow.
His wife found her in the pool, face down. And she's like 3 years old, 2 years old.
Wow.
It was like, she shouldn't have lived. And miraculously saved. And totally fine, too. Without any error.
Good.
So, I think that part of that was a huge part of his life. We talked about it on our last episode we did on changing. I also think that with him, he's funny because first off, a lot of people think him and I wouldn't be like compatible because we're very different, but I just think he's hilarious because he doesn't take himself too seriously at all, right? A lot of people take themselves very seriously in their image and their, I don't know, maybe they're insecure. A lot of these biggest guys are very insecure. You would never know, but super insecure. Brad is not, and I am also not.
Yeah. And
that's why we get along, because we can just talk crap, have a great time. Neither of us take each other super seriously. And I just enjoy people like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, dude, there's no ego. It's just like, do whatever.
Nice, nice. What about, I know you interviewed Tony Robbins. You might have done it twice, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, once.
Once. About, he was releasing a book, as I recall, that interview. What
you know what's interesting about Tony? One, I didn't get to really talk much.
He does. Don't worry, that's on every interview.
I know, and I got warned about it too. A lot of people were like, hey, just so you know, like, he's going to like steamroll.
Yeah.
That's how he is.
He's going to talk.
And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to just try to jump in the best I can as a good host. And sure enough, dude, I asked one question and it was like already a 5-minute thing. And then like, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, now I'll get to like give feedback or ask a new, but then he asked himself a new question. Like, it just steamrolls into the next thing he wants to talk about. And he like, it just naturally flows. So I will say he was one of those interviews where I don't think we developed really any rapport.
Right. It was a transaction to him. He was selling his book.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's how I would describe it too.
Well, and he was on others. I mean, he went on a whole series.
Yeah, he did a tour. And so, you know, it's good to just, you know, do something. Right. And build, I guess, some kind of relationship. But yeah, that interview, I was just like, all right, whatever. I mean, that is what it is.
Check the box. That was.
Yeah. You know, you interview him and it's great. And, you know, we'll see what else comes of it.
Sure.
At the end of the day. But I can't really say I learned anything from it.
Yeah. That's fair. Well, the other thing that I think is going on out there is a lot more people are talking about small businesses. I think we have Alex and Layla Hormozi in Vegas,
Yep.
and then Cody Sanchez. I think she's out of Texas, I think.
Yep.
It's fun to watch. I'll group those two together as, hey, go be small business owners or go buy a business. And then, Ryan Pineda's the real estate guy. At least that's how you started.
Yeah.
More entrepreneur now. But what do you see in those folks? Alex and Layla and then Cody. You've interviewed them a couple of times.
Yeah. So I've had both of them also at WealthCon, and I've had them on the podcast. And it's really cool as I don't know. I don't want to say I have an eye for talent, but I got to interview both of them really early.
I saw that first one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really early.
And just like with Andy Elliott, the same thing. I've gotten, I know when somebody's legit. And I can just see it in the way they speak, the way they present themselves. So I remember with Alex, this was back in 2020.
Wow, that's really early.
Yeah. I saw him make some YouTube videos, and at the time he had like 10,000 subs, 20,000 subs, something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, this fool is really smart. Like, people don't know who, like, this is some of the best information I've ever seen.
Like an MBA in a box back then.
Yeah, I was like, how does this guy have 20,000? This doesn't make any sense. And then I started to see him pop up on TikTok and Instagram. And then I noticed one of my friends, Ryan McGinn, who was, okay, so long story short, to give some context to this whole story. Ryan McGinn, I see him on TikTok. This was back in 2020 when no entrepreneurs were doing it. And I'm seeing him do this little subtitle thing. Nobody was doing it at the time. And I was like, that's really cool. I like that. Now, obviously, everyone has subtitles, right? But this was 2020. Nobody was doing it. And then I see Cardone doing the same exact ones. And I knew. I was like, there's no way Cardone's just doing that.
Right.
So I reached out to Ryan. I go, hey, are you doing Cardone's stuff? And he goes, well, I can't say, but
yeah,
you see what you see.
You see what you see.
Yeah. And I was like,
you can put two and two together.
Yeah. I was like, well, can you do it for me? And he goes, yeah. Like, I don't have any, he's the only client I got.
Right.
Essentially.
Right.
And I was like, well, do it for me. So he starts doing it for me. So that's how I started repurposing my podcast. This was back in 2021.
Look at that.
Nobody was doing it. So then I see Hormozi has the same subtitles. This is after. And I go, Ryan, did you just sign this guy Hormozi? Like, I started seeing his YouTube videos. Nobody knows who he is yet.
Yeah.
Dude, this dude is smart.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, he's really smart. He's also in Vegas. I go, he's in Vegas? Dude, link us up. So then he links us up on a Zoom. And this had to have been in 2021, early. And we just start talking and getting to know each other and stuff. And I was like, dude, I would love to have you on the pod. Let's do this. And so anyways, that led to them being on the pod in 2021. And then they spoke at my event in 2022. And, same thing. I think Cody came on in 2021 or 2022, way before she blew up. And we spent a whole day here, and it was awesome. So I'm really fortunate, I would say, to catch a lot of people way before maybe they blow up, because you get to obviously spend more time with them, get to know them,
right,
all these things. So that being said, what would I learn from both of them? Well, first thing I'll say is I'm super grateful for both of them because, I mentioned the story about paying Ed. I had both of them at my events, and they did it for free.
Wow.
And both wouldn't do it today for free.
But they did.
But they did. And Alex and Layla spent 3 hours speaking at the event. And I'll never forget this. So, I'm talking. I'm like, so, what do you guys want to talk about? Literally talk about whatever you want. You guys are awesome. And, I was like, okay, we decided that Layla would give an hour presentation. Alex would do an hour. And then I would do a Q&A with both of them.
Right.
So that's what we ended up doing. And everyone loved it. It was just so good. Layla talked about hiring. Alex talked about leverage and other things at that moment. But Alex told a story about how he had this whole presentation built up. And randomly, I forgot this happened, we were doing one of our after parties. We do an after party every night at WealthCon. By the way, everyone should go to WealthCon, wealthcon.org. And we randomly ran into him at this place. He wasn't supposed to be there or anything. And they were having frozen yogurt at the place. And so a lot of people saw them and were talking to him and everything else. And he told the story. He goes, I had this whole presentation built, but this morning I spent 4 hours building a new one.
Wow.
Because after talking to so many people that night, I realized they needed different information.
And he changed it.
He built literally like 150 slide presentation that morning from scratch just for that event.
Another good person.
Yeah. And so the point I'm making with that story, I want to tell stories that people would never know.
Right. No, exactly.
Is that they did that on their own time for free because it was the right thing to do. Well, speaking of my event they didn't have to speak at my event, but he changed his presentation.
He was ready to rock. He clearly practiced it.
Yep.
He threw it out the window.
Threw it out the window to give what he felt the audience needed. And I think that is why he has had so much success the last couple of years, is because he thinks with the end user in mind. And he's like, hey, what does my audience need? What kind of content do they need? He doesn't think from his perspective of what do I want to talk about.
Right.
I'm guilty of that. I'm very guilty of, dude, I don't want to think through different topics and videos, dude. I just want to talk, and whatever interests me at that very moment is what I'm going to talk about. And that's gotten me so far.
Right.
But not as far as him, because he's thinking more about what they want, which is the correct way to do it.
That's interesting. It's actually interesting. The more and more I watch his stuff, I actually think I think Alex gets all the props and all the love that he rightly deserves. I think Layla's the secret weapon.
Yeah.
I think she grounds him. She makes him think deeper, and she brings her own superpower to the table.
Oh, and she's totally different.
Yeah.
She's a killer.
She's a
just
killer.
on her own.
She's a killer, yeah.
And so, yeah, she brings that to the table. And Cody's the same way. It's interesting. Cody just released her book. She was going to come here a couple of months ago, and then something happened. So, unfortunately we couldn't do that pod. But, Cody's interesting too, because I think, like you said, they're very similar. And I would just said about 3 years ago, they were both very similar. If you would have watched both of our podcasts we did with both of them, they're around the same time. They both have very similar ideology about life. So that was one thing that I brought up during that podcast was, as a Christian, at that time, Alex was talking a lot about just like, man, life doesn't really mean anything. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to die and everyone's going to forget you. And it was really grim. And I was like, dude, that kind of sucks. So I was like, I'm like, how do you even have any optimism to like go run a business and build it if you just kind of know it doesn't mean anything? And it was a really interesting paradox to kind of go walk through those different ideas. But Cody also had similar ideas at that time. She was just talking about, I'll just say they were similar. You'd have to watch the episodes to see what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But recently, she has been posting way more about faith and church.
She sure has.
And everything
relationship
else.
And her husband.
Yeah, and she's like, hey, I was wrong about this stuff. Like going to church, like I think, people are right. Like this makes a difference. So it's really cool to see. I'm excited to see where her life is headed on that front. And I haven't got a chance to talk to her in depth. That's why I really wanted her to come on.
Yeah.
Because I really want to see what changed. And it's not like she wasn't a good person or anything before, because both are awesome people, like I said. But I am curious to see like what has shifted in her life that is making her more about it.
Yeah, there's probably a thing or a story. There.
Yeah, and I love to see it.
Yeah, there you go. How about Patrick Bet-David? I think he's a very interesting individual.
Dude, it's funny you're just like asking me all these people. I don't think I've ever talked about like any of them, because I always don't want to be the guy talking about other people. So I never reflect on my guest or anyone else. Like I'm talking to them, whatever them and I are talking about. I don't want to talk about them offhanded. But all these people are great, so I don't mind it. I just don't want to be the hater guy.
No.
Right? So with PBD, man, I've met him a couple of times now. And the time I did interview him was at his office. And this was back in 2022.
Is that in Florida? Or
yeah, in Florida.
Okay.
And I remember first day I meet him, he's great, super hospitable, all these things. And he had just sold his company. It wasn't public yet. He goes, hey, when's this air? I go, whenever. You tell me. He's like, okay, well, I just sold my company for like $250 million. I was like, oh, that's pretty big news.
Yeah,
he's like,
that's the big number.
yeah, he's like, so we could talk about that. He's like, just make sure you release it
After.
Yeah. I'm like, all right. You already trust me. Great.
We're starting off on a good
I'm going to go
foot.
break the news.
New story.
Yep. Patrick's, no one knows. I'm the breaker. No. So, anyways, yeah, we do the interview and everything else, and we talk about all these different things. The one thing I'll say about Patrick is, number one, he's obviously built two amazing things that people don't realize. So one was, yeah, he built the insurance company, sold it for, hundreds of millions. But the second thing is what he's building at Valuetainment.
That is awesome.
Yeah, like to build a media company now and to really, he could build $1 billion media company.
I think he will.
Yeah. And so to see how he's kind of built both simultaneously is really interesting
Was
to
it
watch.
simultaneously?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Well, so this was the first time we met. So I met him at my friend Sean Cannell's event, who you know.
Yep.
And we were at Growth Video Live. And I'm actually with my friend Ruslan, who's a Christian YouTuber. And Ruslan at that point, that's a whole different story. He was just getting into YouTube. And I remember we were a part of a Monday morning Bible study virtually. Okay, he had 20,000 subs. Now he has millions.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, dude, how do you do it? And I was like, well, we'll hop on a call. I'll tell you a little bit about it. At that time I had maybe, 100,000, 200,000 or something. And long story short, I see him at this event with Sean because Sean, and I are in this Bible study. He's like, Ryan, you got to meet Patrick. I know him. I was like, all right, cool. So he hypes me up. He's like, Pat, this is Ryan, dude. He's the best. His YouTube channel, he's already got 200,000 subs in 2 years. And, he's real estate business, dude. You guys got to get to know each other. And Pat's like, dude, that's awesome, man. He's like, did you know, Ryan? This is our first interaction. He goes, when I started Valuetainment a decade ago, we had, I forgot the exact number. He's like, we only got to, I want to say 3,000 subs in the first 3 years.
Wow.
It was something extremely low.
But he kept going.
Yeah, and he's like, the fact that you're already at where you're at, it's crazy. And he goes, here's my advice. You got to reinvent yourself every cycle. And he goes, when we hit 250,000 subs, we took a month off.
I remember this. Yeah, he took a break.
Yeah, he told me he took a break, game planned, reinvented themselves. He said, then we hit 1 million, took a break, took a month off, didn't post, reinvented ourselves. We hit X million, we reinvented, and it's obvious to see now, right? You've seen the evolution of what he's done. Now he's very into politics and his podcast and all that. Yeah. But before it was really about entrepreneurs and all that. And then before that, dude, he was doing mafia stuff and short films. And so,
makes sense.
He's been constantly reinventing. And this is no different than what Dave Ramsey said. Dave Ramsey said the same thing. You got to constantly reinvent the process of what you're doing. The people he's trying to serve have not changed. He's always been trying to help entrepreneurs.
Right.
But the process of how he does it keeps changing. And so that's one thing that I realize with all these great entrepreneurs, especially Patrick, is you got to have the ability and the courage to not only stop doing something,
right,
but to completely pivot gears. Because I've had to stop many businesses and shut them down. Patrick, every great entrepreneur has had to do that. But I've never stopped my YouTube channel in 5 years. And I'm coming up on 400,000 subs. Who knows? It might,
almost 400. It's 396. I think I checked this morning.
It might be the time, or maybe at 500K. Maybe it's whatever arbitrary number it becomes. But at some point, whatever got me to this point won't get me to the next point. And so I got to decide whether or not it's important to me to try and go for the next point. If it's going to be 1 million, right? Well, what gets me to 1 million?
So that's fun to think about, because when I look at Patrick Bet David, and again, I don't know him, never been lucky enough to speak with him, I see him as he wants to be $1 billion media company. I'm just making that number up.
Yep.
When I look at Ryan,
and he told me that 2 years ago, by the way.
Wow, he saw that early.
Well, he told it on the podcast.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, he was like,
that's where we're going.
He goes, now that I've sold my company, I got to still be the CEO and face for however long the earnout is. He's like, but my focus is Valuetainment.
Right.
I'm going to build this. into
And he just
a
bought that
massive
big
media
piece of
company.
real estate in Florida, the hangar and all of that. So,
Yeah, so this has all been part of his plan.
yeah, that's again, I think entrepreneurs can see the future in Technicolor, like I said earlier.
By the way, in hindsight, I wish I would have hired him for WealthCon because I had the chance, and I don't know, 2-3 years ago, to get him at WealthCon. I remember I was like, looking at speakers and all the stuff. And at the time, he was $70,000. And dude, I never paid that. Like everything was free. I'm like, $70,000, that's a lot of money. And we looked at each other and everyone, and we're like, it's all good. We won't do it.
Yeah.
We just weren't big enough yet. Like our events were like 300 people. We weren't at the 1,000 plus.
Right.
So then when we finally got to that status where it's like, oh yeah, we could afford somebody. I remember reaching out back to Patrick and they're like, yeah, Patrick's like $200,000.
Not 70.
Yeah. And I was like, huh. And then I reached out back again. He's like, yeah, since he sold his company for $250 million, like, yeah, Patrick's like $300,000 now. And I'm like, man, I should have probably got him when he was 70.
$70,000. Opportunity missed.
Yeah, but we're still friends and
Yeah.
still did podcasts and we'll do other stuff.
That's pretty cool. Well, it's funny. I don't know if you know this. You probably do because you like data and numbers. Your most popular podcast by views with a guest. So there are a couple of videos of just you solo.
It's you.
No, Lisa Sutton. I'm number 2.
Lisa's number 1?
Lisa Sutton is number 1 by like 2,000 or 3,000 views.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Lisa Sutton. So, I think Lisa's an amazing story. She's actually speaking at my event.
Oh, nice.
In a couple of weeks. And obviously she's going to be welcoming her new baby here soon. So she's pregnant. I don't know if you knew that, but yeah.
I think that episode and what we did on the mailbox kind of put her on the map.
Yeah, that mailbox one blew up.
Yeah, because at that time...
It was a great thumbnail, too.
Yeah, her and I met in a group called YPO.
Yep.
And
YPO.
I was like, dang, like this mailbox thing you do is cool. Like you should
kind of
come
real
on.
estate, sell by the
Yeah, and then I had her at WealthCon and everything else. And then...
that's where I ran into her, at WealthCon.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I've seen her on, different things since then. So that doesn't surprise me. I don't look at I have no idea. I'm like, dang, I can't believe that one blew up the way it did.
Yeah, it's 400. I think it was 496. I prepared for this, so she's the number 1. I'm number 2.
Dang.
Yeah.
Well, we gotta boost your views.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Come on,
We
go
gotta compete.
check it out. So as we kind of bring this home, what is really having a podcast long form really done for you, the person, and then Ryan the brand, and then Ryan the business? What is having access to all of these people done for you first?
Wow, that's a great way to put it. Me personally, obviously it's about the relationships. So me personally, getting to know all these people. I've been saying this for a while now, and people just didn't listen. But I'm like, you got to do podcast. It's way better than any other form of content,
Right.
and it's not that just business wise conversions and all this. It's all the benefits of it, because the thing is, none of these people, if I invite them and say, hey, you want to just come hang out
Yeah.
for 2 hours and just talk? Yeah, a couple would,
Yeah.
but very few would.
Right.
But the fact that it can become leverage and get thousands of views and then be cut up and everything else makes it worthwhile. And also get it, exposed to a different audience and whatever else, right? So personally, being able to literally call all of these people I mentioned and text them and ask them for feedback, ask them for help or favors or whatever. I mean, what do you...
Yeah. You can't put a price on
Yeah,
that.
there's no price. So I think that's been a really cool thing personally. And the different doors, too, that it's open to meet people I would have never met.
Yeah. All of the ones we've talked about today, maybe ex Tony Robbins, you could text out of the blue and they'd respond.
Yeah. Even a funny story even about Dave Ramsey. Patrick Lencioni, who was on the show, is the one who introduced me to Dave because he was like, dude, I really like you. Like, I want to introduce you to Dave. I'm like, great. I'd love to meet Dave. And Dave sent me an email, and I literally didn't respond because I don't check my emails.
Right.
And my assistant, Jonathan, literally he's in the hospital going through this whole thing, and he's not checking all my stuff anymore. He's like, dude, I got bored, and I just went through your emails. Did you know Dave Ramsey emailed you? And I was like, no.
Whoops.
Yeah, and I was like, when? He's like, dude, it was like 10 days ago. You ghosted him. And I was like, oh, man. Well, I should probably respond to that.
Maybe I should respond to that.
Yeah, so
Whoops.
You want to get a hold of me, don't email me.
Note
So-
to self. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, but yeah. So yeah, all of them I can go hit up and it's great. But so yeah, I would say personally there's that. Personal brand wise, I mean, look, I think there's two things that it does. One is, I mean, obviously authority. So when you're around other people and they respect you and you like, it just creates more authority and stronger brand. But also too, I like it because I don't have to prep. And that's a good and a bad thing.
Right.
Because, dude, I don't prep. I just show up and I expect that it's going to be a good conversation because I'm just a curious person and I want to know about people. So I would way rather interview somebody and talk than think, man, okay, what are the 7 tips I'm going to give this person about freaking this thing?
The outline, yeah.
I hate that.
Okay.
I did that my first couple of years. And by the way, maybe I need a break because I know doing that would get me to 1 million. Like, you can literally reverse engineer virality.
Right.
Like, I could go look up all the most viral videos, remake them, do my own version of the list.
Right.
And,
The 7 this, the 4 that.
I just don't want to do it. But it is the smart thing to do. So anyways, I like podcasts because I don't have to do nothing. I just show up and we just riff. It's great.
Yeah.
And then the third thing would be business-wise. Yeah. Business-wise, it's interesting, right? Because on one hand, if I do make a training real estate video, I don't enjoy doing it because I talk about the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
On the other hand, business-wise, it will get so many leads for the business. If you go watch an hour training about me teaching you how to wholesale a house, odds are you're going to be like, all right, I like what this guy has to say. I want to do it. I want to learn more. And they're going to go to Wealthy Investor.
Right.
So from a lead generation standpoint, long-form training videos are amazing for the business. They're also amazing for sending to people who maybe come in through a paid ad or something. It's like, hey, go watch this video,
just repurpose
get
it.
some value, and check it out. As far as podcasts go, it's not like we're doing training or anything right here, but what I think it does is it builds trust. And so somebody who maybe came in from a training, they're like, okay, I get it. You understand the X's and O's. But then when you get to listen for 90 minutes about life, and you get to see the personality.
Yeah, the good and the bad.
The character. You're like, okay, I trust this person. Like, I didn't come here for a training. I came to see what kind of person this is, and I like it. And so, yeah, I think podcasts help with building trust.
Yeah, I think that's wise advice. So when is the next WealthCon?
July 24th to the 27th.
Nice.
Ed Mylett, Brandon Turner. I've got some others up my sleeve, but
very cool.
Just that's all you need to know.
There you go. That's right. Ed Mylett. We heard about him earlier. Big heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
paid him a lot of money. Get a diamond ticket. I'm trying to get him for free from you guys buying diamond tickets.
There you go.
Dude, this is actually, by the way, this is a good story about the diamond ticket. So I talked about how, that subsidized getting the cost.
Sure.
But what I didn't realize was what people would like about the diamond ticket. So in my mind, I was like, well, okay, I'm going to give them, front row seats. That's obvious. We're going to have dinner. And I think the dinner is going to be the thing that everybody wants. Wrong.
Really?
People like the dinner. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
The most valuable aspect for them was in the last second, I said, you know what? Why don't I give them like their own separate backstage area?
Like a green room.
Yeah.
Almost.
I'm like, why don't I give them the green room? And then I'll just have every speaker come stop by for like however long they want, right? Whether it's 5 minutes or whether it's an hour, let each speaker decide what they want to do.
Genius.
And I'm like, I'm going to create them a green room and just let them watch from there. So you know what happened? Nobody was in the front row. So I got rid of that because I'm like, dude, this looks terrible.
Yeah,
like, why is there?
That's bad on video.
Yeah, there's no one in the front.
Yeah.
Because they're all in the green room.
Right.
And you know what ended up happening? 2 things. They got so much time with all the speakers, not just Ed, that they were just like, this is the best thing ever.
I'll do it again, yeah.
The second thing that happened was they all became buddies because
that's true. They're all
in there together. And the thing is, dude, you spend 3 days together.
Yeah.
And everyone paid $10,000 for a ticket.
Yeah, everybody's equal. Everybody can pay.
That's the point. Right. Everybody's a big roller.
Oh yeah, they're going deep. Yeah.
If you're paying $10,000 for a ticket, you got some money.
Yep. That's
so
cool.
everybody was very qualified, and so when I asked them for feedback afterwards, I'm like, so what'd you like the most? Like, this dinner was tight, right? And they're like, yeah, the dinner, that was good. That was good. That was like a good way to end it because it was the end.
Right.
They're like, it was good to cap it off, but this
green room
was what we liked.
There we go.
Yeah. So it's funny. Sometimes you think something is going to be so good and that this is the thing that they're going to love. And maybe that's what they buy for initially.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But you realize
That's
what it
power.
is they really like.
Diamond tickets, green room,
10K.
speakers.
Don't ask for a discount.
They'll
be.
You don't need them.
Well, yeah, they're gonna sell out regardless.
There you go. Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's always fun to do it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate you, dude.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.
Good job, dude.
Yeah, that was fun.